Eli Carter had never been to another planet before. As a cultural representative of Earth, he felt both proud and nervous when his small silver shuttle entered the glowing atmosphere of Villanine. It was his first mission after it joined the Galactic Council, and he was chosen for his calm nature and deep understanding of alien cultures. Velar-9 was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Floating cities hung in the sky like giant lily pads, connected by thin glowing bridges. Waterfalls poured from the sides of hovering towers and vanished into the mist below. The sky was soft purple, with 2 moons shining even during the day. As the shuttle landed gently on a crystal platform, a group of tall, graceful beings waited to welcome him. They were the Volari, a peaceful, mostly female race, known for their soft voices, blue-tinted skin, and flowing robes that shimmered like water. One of them stepped forward. Her eyes were silver, and her long hair moved as if caught in a slow breeze. "Welcome to Villarnine, Earthmen," she said kindly, her voice calm and light. "I am Sayla, your guide during your stay." Eli gave a polite nod. "Thank you. I'm honored to be here." Without speaking further, the Volari led him down a smooth glass pathway into the main city. The buildings were curved and glowing softly from within. There were no sharp corners. Everything looked gentle, peaceful, and quiet as they walked. Sayla explained things through soft words and gestures. The Volari did not speak much. They used soft tones and telepathic connection for deeper thoughts, something Eli was still learning to understand. Finally, they arrived at his guest quarters, a round room with high ceilings, a bed like a cloud, and walls that changed color with his mood. "You may rest and prepare for the welcome dinner tonight," Sayla said. "It will be held at sunset." "Thank you," Eli replied with a smile. "I'll get ready." She bowed slightly and left, the doors closing with a gentle hum. Eli looked around the room. There were no obvious buttons or switches, but the lights dimmed as he moved. Everything felt alive yet silent. He opened the small suitcase he had brought. Inside was his formal black suit, simple Earth design, but respectful. Not knowing what the Volari expected, he decided to wear something familiar. Naturally, Eli started to undress. He removed his jacket, then his shirt, folding them neatly on the soft bed. The air in the room felt warm and smooth on his skin, but before he could reach for his new clothes, the door slid open. 2 Volari women stood at the entrance. One was the same guard who had greeted him, and the other was younger, probably an assistant. They had come to deliver something, maybe instructions or a message. But the moment they saw him without a shirt, everything stopped. The younger Volari gasped and quickly turned her face away, her cheeks turning bright blue. The other guard froze, her eyes wide with surprise. Eli stood confused, holding his shirt in one hand. I didn't know someone would come in," he said quickly. It seemed different. Still, no alarms went off. No guards returned. The room remained calm and quiet. Eli finally got dressed, now fully covered in his formal outfit. He practiced his greeting lines in front of the glowing mirror, trying to stay focused. But in his mind, the memory of the Volari women's shocked faces stayed clear. Later that evening, Sayla returned. "You are ready?" she asked, her voice still calm, but her eyes held a question. "Yes," Eli said. I think I may have made a mistake earlier." She tilted her head. "I was changing clothes, and some Volari walked in. I didn't know it was a problem." Sayla gave a small smile, but not of laughter, more like understanding. "We do not expose our skin, not even alone. It is part of our spirit, we believe. But they know you are different. They do not blame you." Eli sighed in relief. "I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. You are learning." "That is enough," Sayla said softly as they walked toward the grand dining hall. Eli knew that this journey was not going to be easy, but it was going to be important. And strange as it was, it had already begun. The great dining hall of Villanine sparkled like a dream. Giant light orbs floated gently above the long silver table, and soft music played in the air without any visible instruments. Dozens of Volari sat with perfect posture, their robes flowing like water around them. Every motion was slow, graceful, and calm. Eli walked beside Sayla, dressed neatly now, careful with every step. He noticed the way the Volari looked at him, not angry, Curious, some whispered silently to each other. Others simply watched. He felt their attention like a quiet wind brushing against his thoughts. The matriarch. Council sat at the head of the table. These were the wisest and oldest of the Volari, women with long silver hair and robes decorated. With symbols, one of them, tall and elegant, raised her hand. The music stopped. Selah whispered, "That is Alarin, High Matriarch. She will speak." Laren's voice echoed softly through the hall. "We welcome Eli Carter of Earth, a world, newly joined to our council. We honor his presence and open our hearts to peaceful learning." Everyone bowed their heads. Eli did the same. "Thank you for your welcome. I bring greetings from Earth and hope for friendship." The food arrived on floating trays, colorful fruits, glowing petals, and small cubes that changed flavor when touched. Eli tried everything politely, though some tastes were very new to him. As the dinner continued, the topic of Earth came up. "What are your customs?" asked one Volari across the table, her tone gentle. "Do you speak with sound only?" Another asked, "Is it tiring?" Eli laughed kindly. "Yes, we mostly use sound. We're still learning about telepathy." "Do you feel fear when showing your skin?" someone else asked quietly. The room became silent again. Eli blinked. "No, not really. For us it's normal. We change clothes in private, but don't." "Think it's bad?" The Volari looked at one another. Their faces held a mix of confusion and deep thought. One of them nodded slowly, as if learning something important. Selah noticed Eli's discomfort. She leaned closer and said softly, "They are not judging. They are trying to understand." Eli nodded. "I hope I didn't insult anyone earlier." Looked directly at him. "You did something that surprised us," she said in her calm voice. "But surprises are not always bad. You reminded us that there are many ways to live. You acted without harm. That is what matters." Eli felt a wave of relief. He was still unsure if he was truly accepted, but at least he was not hated. He thanked her with a respectful nod and stayed quiet as the conversation moved on. After the meal, the guests moved to a garden that floated in the sky, surrounded by glowing trees and soft flowers. The stars above were bright, and one moon was slowly rising. Selah walked beside him. "You have become a topic of interest," she said gently. Eli sighed. "Because I took off my shirt." She smiled. "Yes, but also because you did not fear. We cover our skin because it is sacred. To you, skin is just ... normal." "I didn't mean to be rude," he said again. "You weren't rude. You were honest. Some Volari find that refreshing." Eli looked around. "Do you think they'll accept me?" Selah stopped and looked at him directly. "I already have." There was something kind in her words, something deeper. Eli smiled, feeling a little more confident. Just then, another Volari approached. She was younger and had been one of the ones who saw him in his room earlier. Her name was Tirana. She stood before Eli, unsure for a moment, then said, "I saw YOU before. I was shocked, but I thought about it. You were not trying to show power. You were just ... being yourself." Eli replied, "I hope I didn't scare you." Tirana shook her head. "No, you made me think. Maybe we are too quick to hide. Maybe honesty can also be beautiful." She gave it pink, and the air smelled like sweet mist and morning flowers. Eli stood near the edge of the garden platform outside. His room, watching the light reflect off the floating towers. He felt calmer now. The night before had surprised him, but also taught him something important. The Volari were not angry. They were curious, confused, yes, but also open-minded. Just then, the door to his room chimed softly. He turned. "Come in." It was Selah, holding a small silver device in her hand. She wore a robe of light blue today, with silver leaves embroidered across the sleeves. Her expression was calm, but interested. "Good morning, Eli," she said softly. "Did you rest well?" "Yes, thank you," he replied with a smile. Everything here is peaceful. She stepped forward. The Matriarch Council has asked me to guide you through the cultural archives today. They believe you should understand our traditions better. Eli nodded. That sounds good. I'd like to learn. Selah looked pleased, and they have also requested that you speak to a small group of students later. They want to know more about Earth and about you. Eli blinked. Me? Yes, she replied. Your actions have started many conversations. Many young Valari are curious about human behavior, especially your openness. He chuckled nervously. So, I became a teacher without planning to? Selah smiled gently. Sometimes the best lessons begin by accident. They arrived at the Hall of Culture, a wide dome that floated above a lake. Inside, glowing symbols floated in the air, and soft voices spoke in many languages, all layered but clear. Selah led Eli to a section showing Valari customs. There were images of ancient robes, silent dances, and the ritual of silence, a ceremony where Valari cover their hands and faces to show inner peace. We believe the body is a mirror of the soul, Selah explained. To reveal it is to reveal deep truth. It is why we are. Careful with skin, with eyes, even with touch. Eli listened with interest. That's very different from humans. On Earth, showing your face or hands is normal. In fact, hiding them might make others feel distant. Selah nodded slowly. Is what fascinates us. You live with open gestures. We live with hidden meanings. She looked at him. You may not see it yet, but many Valari are watching you. It's not with fear, but with wonder. Later that day, Eli stood in a small circle of young Valari students inside a quiet learning chamber. The walls were clear, showing the view of the city floating beyond them. The students, all female, dressed in pale learning robes, sat silently, eyes on Eli. He felt nervous, but also honored. Selah stood beside him and spoke first. This is Eli Carter, a human from Earth. He has kindly agreed to share his customs with us. One student raised her hand. Do all humans remove their outer layers so icily? Eli smiled. Yes, we do, but only in private or when needed. We don't think of it as bold or rude. It's just part of daily life. Another asked. Why? Do you not feel exposed? He thought carefully. Because we are taught that the body is not shameful. Sometimes we dress to stay warm, sometimes for tradition. We don't always hide. The students nodded slowly. Their eyes glowed with interest. A third student, her voice soft, asked, Do you believe we are strange? Eli shook his head. No, I think you're beautiful. Your ways are deep and meaningful. I'm still learning, but I respect how you live. Comes when we least expect it. She paused. Many Valari live quietly, never questioning our rules. But now they are asking, why do we hide so much? Is there another way to show respect? Eli was silent for a moment. I didn't come here to cause confusion. I just wanted to be polite. Selah looked at him. And yet, your honesty has become a lesson. The wind moved softly through the garden. The moon rose again. Eli realized that what began as a mistake was slowly becoming a bridge between two very different worlds. And somewhere in that gentle silence, something new was being born. The days passed quietly, but something had changed on Velar-9, where once the Valari kept their distance. Now they watched Eli with open interest. Some still whispered, unsure of what to think, but others were starting to smile when they saw him. A few had even begun to ask him questions in the hallways. Simple things like how humans live, what food they eat, or how they show friendship. Eli always answered kindly, happy to share, careful not to make mistakes again. He had learned that. Even small actions carried great meaning here. One afternoon, Selah invited him to a special part of the city, a garden known as the Mirror Bloom. It was a sacred space where Valari came to reflect and think quietly. Floating petals drifted in the air. The water below reflected not just faces, but emotions. Eli followed her along a soft glass path, amazed at the stillness of the place. Selah finally spoke. You are becoming a symbol, Eli.
I...
Her, confused. A symbol? She nodded. Some call you the Bear One, not an insult, but as a sign of someone unafraid. Someone who shows himself without shame. That is rare among us. Eli laughed gently. I didn't mean to be anyone special, I know, Selah said. That's why it matters. They sat beside the water. The surface shimmered, showing their reflections, Eli's thoughtful face and Selah's calm expression. Valari culture is very old, she continued. Our ways are peaceful, but we often fear change. Now your presence makes us question that fear. Eli thought for a moment. On Earth we have many cultures too. Some are very open, others very private. But we always grow through sharing, even if we don't understand at first. Selah smiled. That is what many are beginning to believe. Later that evening, something new happened. The High Matriarch, Ron, invited Eli to attend a council meeting, not as a guest, but as a voice. It was rare for an outsider to be allowed into such a gathering, even rarer to be heard. Eli was. Surprised but honored, inside the quiet chamber, glowing lines moved across the floor like streams. The matriarchs sat in a circle, their robes shining with symbols of history. They welcomed Eli with calm nods. LRN spoke first. We are not here to judge. We're here to learn. Eli Carter, speak freely. Eli stood in the center, heart steady. He chose his words carefully. I know I made a mistake when I came here, but your kindness turned it into something more. I've seen how strong your traditions are. I respect them. But I also believe learning about others can make us stronger too. He paused. I didn't come here to change anyone. I think we can understand each other if we try. The room stayed quiet. The matriarchs listened with still faces, and one of them, younger than the others, leaned forward. Would you be willing, she asked, to help us create a new way? A space where both our cultures can share ideas? Eli nodded. I would be honored. Ilaron looked at the others. Then it is decided. The first cross-cultural forum will be created. Eli Carter shall help guide it. After the meeting, Selah walked with Eli under the stars. You spoke well, she said. I was nervous, he admitted. But they listened. They did more than listen. They agreed, she said with pride. Then she stopped walking and looked at him. Eli, there is something else I wish to say. He waited. I have spent most of my life following rules, speaking only when asked, moving only when guided. But since you arrived, I feel something different. You ask questions. You smile without reason. You speak from the heart. Eli smiled. That's just being human, I think. I think it is something more, she said quietly. For a moment, they stood in silence, surrounded by floating lights and gentle wind. Then Selah said, Tomorrow, I want to show you something few outsiders have seen? A tradition not recorded in any book. What is it? Eli asked. You'll see, she replied with a soft smile. And with that, she turned and walked ahead, her silver hair moving like water in the starlight. That night, Eli looked out from his window, thinking deeply. He had arrived on Villarnine. They entered a tall archway, where soft lights moved along the walls like dancing water. The place felt older than the rest of the city, quiet and full of deep silence. This is the Chamber of Origin, Selah whispered. Few come here, only those chosen by the matriarchs. Eli looked around. The room was round with carvings. Along the walls, in the center was a pool of silver water that reflected the ceiling like a mirror. Selah stepped to the edge of the pool and touched the surface with one finger. The water rippled, and a memory appeared, a glowing image floating. Above the pool, it showed an ancient Valari woman standing without her robe, surrounded by stars. She was calm, her arms open, her face full of peace. Eli watched, amazed. She was the first matriarch, Selah said. In the beginning, the Valari did not hide their skin. We believed in openness and harmony with the stars. But after the great silence, a time of sorrow and conflict, we began to cover ourselves to protect what we thought was sacred. Eli listened carefully. So, covering the body became part of healing? Yes, Selah nodded. But over time, It became fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of change. She turned to Eli. That is why your action, though small, made such an impact. You reminded us of something we had forgotten. Eli looked into the pool, thinking about everything she had said. I didn't know I would become part of something this big. No one ever does, Selah said with a smile. But while Eli and Selah walked the path of peace, others were not so sure. High above. In a quiet meeting chamber, an elder named Chiron spoke with sharp eyes and a firm voice. She was one of the oldest members of the Matriarch Council. Deeply loyal to tradition. This human, Chiron said, has changed too much, too quickly. Our people are losing their way, another elder replied. He has not forced change. He only showed who he is. Chiron frowned. And now, our young ones question our robes, our silence, our ways. What will be left if we continue like this? She stood and looked out the window at the floating city. He will attend the Unison of Stars tomorrow. That is our most sacred ceremony. If he speaks there, it will send a message we cannot take. Back, some in the room stayed silent. Others nodded slowly. We must protect our tradition, Chiron said, even if it means stopping him. Later that day, Eli prepared for the Unison of Stars, a ceremony where the Valari joined minds. In silent connection, opening their thoughts to one another in trust. Selah had invited him to wear a special robe designed by both humans and Valari together. It was light, simple, and unlike anything ever worn at the event. As he stood in front of the mirror, he could feel the importance of the moment. Selah entered, the room holding a crystal charm. This is for you, she said, placing it gently around his neck. It was given to those who walked in truth. Eli touched the charm. Will they accept me there? I don't know, Selah admitted. Some will, some may not. But the truth must still be spoken. As the sun set and stars filled the sky, the grand hall of the Unison of Stars began to glow. Hundreds of Valari gathered, seated in circles, their robes flowing like rivers around them. Eli stepped forward, his heart steady. All eyes turned toward him. But before he could speak, a firm voice echoed through the hall. Stop. It was Chiron. She walked forward, her robe dark and heavy, her presence strong. This is not our way, she said. He does not belong here. He comes from a world that does not understand silence or sacredness. He will destroy what we have kept safe for centuries. Grew tense. Eli looked at Selah. She stepped forward. He has done nothing but speak with honesty, she said calmly. He does not destroy, he reminds. Chiron turned to the crowd. If we allow him to continue, our young ones will forget who they are. One of the younger matriarchs stood, or maybe, they will remember what we used to be. Whispers spread across the hall. Eli said nothing yet. He waited, knowing this was not his moment to fight, but theirs to choose. And what they chose would change everything. The great hall of Villarnine was filled with silence, but it was not peaceful. The Unison of Stars ceremony had always been calm and sacred, a moment of unity where Valari joined minds through quiet thoughts and deep connection. But now, tension filled the air like a rising storm. Eli stood in the center of the hall, wearing the special robe designed with both Earth and Valari symbols. It was his way of showing respect and also hope. But he had not expected to face open challenge. Elder Chiron, tall and proud, had stepped forward and stopped everything. Her voice had echoed across the chamber, strong, sharp, and full of warning. He does not belong here, she had said. We'll break our silence and weaken our unity. The crowd sat still, unsure. Some looked at Eli with concern. Others looked at Selah, waiting for her to speak. Selah stepped forward slowly. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were firm. He has not broken anything, she said clearly. He has only shared who he is. Is that not what unity means, Lorraine's? Expression hardened. Unity does not mean forgetting who we are. Our silence is sacred. Our ways are not for outsiders. A younger matriarch, Lariah, rose from her seat. Her robe was lighter in color, her eyes full of thought. I was taught that silence brings peace, she said. But this human's honesty has also brought peace to my heart, to the hearts of many young Valari. Is that not worth listening to? Murmurs spread among the crowd. Some nodded quietly. Others looked unsure. Chiron stepped closer. We are not here to become human, Nosela said, stepping beside Eli. But we are here to grow. And that means listening to others, even when it is new, even when it is strange. Tanned with you. The silence grew deep again, but this time it felt different. Warm, full of thought. A voice spoke from the side. It was Tirana, the young Valari, who had once seen Eli in his room and been shocked. She stood with steady eyes. I was once afraid of what he did, she said. But I saw he meant no harm. He was simply being himself. And that made me wonder, why do we fear being seen? She stepped forward and removed one layer of her outer robe, still modest, still respectful, but symbolic. A quiet gasp moved through the hall. Another voice joined her. Then another. Slowly, more Valari stood, removing a single layer of their robes, not in disrespect, but in solidarity, showing they were willing to share, to open. Even Elder Lariah did the same, but Chiron stood still, her face unreadable. Finally, Eleron, the High Matriarch, rose. She looked across the room, then at Chiron, then at Eli. I have lived many years, she said softly. I have seen war and peace, sorrow and joy, but change. Real change always comes with questions. Tonight, I see those questions in every heart here. She stepped forward and placed her hand gently on Eli's shoulder. Tonight, we share the unison not just with our minds, but with our courage. She raised her hand, and the soft lights of the hall began to glow. A wave of calm filled the air as minds began to connect, not through tradition but through choice. Eli closed his eyes. He felt it, a gentle hum. In his mind, images, emotions, and peaceful thoughts flowed around him. He was part of it now. He belonged. Later that night, the sky above Villernine was full of stars. The city glowed with soft colors. Music played quietly in the distance. Selah and Eli stood on the balcony, watching the stars. You did more than speak, she said. You reminded us of something we had buried long ago. Eli smiled. And you helped me feel welcome when I didn't know if I could ever belong. She looked at him. You do belong. More than you know. They stood there, quiet and calm, not needing words. Tomorrow, the stars would rise again. And Villernine would not be the same. A soft golden light filled the sky of Villernine as a new day began. The city floated peacefully above the clouds, but something in the air had changed. It was not just another morning, it was the start of a new chapter. Eli stood on the balcony of his guest quarters. Watching the sunrise, he took a deep breath. The night before had felt like a dream, standing before hundreds of Valari, speaking from his heart and being accepted. Even those who once doubted him had listened. The unison of stars had ended with calm silence and soft connection. But the message was strong. Change had begun. A chime sounded at the door. Come in, Eli said. The door slid open, and Selah entered, dressed in a robe with new colors, blue and silver, with a small earth symbol on the collar. You're up early, she said with a smile. I couldn't sleep, Eli replied. Too many thoughts. Selah stepped beside him. Many are feeling the same. Across the city, people are talking. Some are excited, others are unsure. But no one is silent anymore. Eli smiled. That's a good sign. She nodded. The council met again this morning. They made a decision. They want to begin the Cultural Exchange Initiative, a shared space for learning between Earth and Villernine. Really? Eli's eyes lit up. Double quotes, yes, Selah said. And they want you to be the first human advisor? Eli was speechless. For a moment, you brought this change, Selah said. You stood in the middle of our oldest tradition and spoke with honesty. That takes courage. You showed us we can learn from others without losing ourselves. Eli looked down, humbled. I never planned any of this. That's why it worked, she said gently. A few days later, the Cultural Exchange Center opened. In the heart of the city, it was built with both Valari and Earth designs, soft curves, open spaces, and quiet music that blended technology and nature inside the center. Valari students sat beside human visitors, learning each other's ways. Holograms showed Earth cities, animals, and dances. In another room, Valari history played in gentle light, showing their long journey through peace and silence. Eli gave tours, answered questions, and even shared stories from his childhood. Stories that made the Valari laugh softly or look at him with wonder. One day, a young Valari girl asked him, "Do all humans think like you?" Eli smiled. "No, we all think differently. But we try to understand each other. It's what makes us strong." Outside the center, not everything was easy. Some Valari still walked with their heads low, unsure if the change was too fast. Some elders still wore full robes and stayed away from the meetings. But even they couldn't stop what had started. Young Valari walked with more confidence. They spoke more. They asked questions, and across the stars, Earth began to learn too. Human ships arrived with diplomats, artists, and scholars. They didn't come to lead, they came to listen. Together, both species started to build something new. One evening, as the sun set in golden waves, Eli and Selah walked along the floating garden bridge. "You've done so much," Selah said. "So have you," Eli replied. "You stood by me when no one else did." She looked at him, her eyes soft. "I believed in you. And now, I believe in us." Eli paused. "Do you ever wish things had stayed the same?" Selah shook her head. "No, change is part of life. We were silent for too long. Our voices are waking." She looked up at the stars. And I think, this is only the beginning." They stood in silence, not because they were hiding, but because they were at peace. Later that night, in his journal, Eli wrote, "I came to this planet not knowing what to expect. I made a mistake. Opened a door. Now, Velar 9 and Earth walk side by side. We are different in language, in culture, in thought. But we are learning." Together, the silence was beautiful. The voices are even more powerful. The stars above Villarnine shone brighter that night. A human and an alien had started something no one expected, not by force, not by control, but by honesty, by trust, and by the courage to be seen. And across the galaxy, others began to notice. The age of quiet was ending. A new age, the age of understanding, had just begun.